The first thought Anderton had when he saw the young man was, I'm getting bald. Bald and fat and old. Many such cases.
What else is there to say?
It comes for us all eventually.
This has been Workers Lit. Thanks, everybody.
I like how Philip K. Dick foresaw pre-crime, all the off-world colonies, all these exciting developments, but apparently not Rogaine, Ozempic, or estradiol.
Yeah.
That's the thing. All right, so we live in an age of wonders, right? Many of them are terrible, but for the longest time, even that we can remember in our short time on this earth, the idea of a cure for male pattern baldness was that's fantasy, right? Even
and fantasy
Gene
is
Roddenberry,
not Philip K. Dick's genre,
no.
So he wouldn't write about it.
Even Gene Roddenberry,
Exactly right.
his utopian future, his best thing that he could say, which really is better, is in the future no one cares if you're bald. That's nicer, right? No one has to be self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
And you know what, Patrick Stewart? Everyone I know thinks you're the hottest captain, unless they think that Avery Brooks is the hottest captain only after he shaves his head.
There are lots of handsome bald men.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rax King.
Yeah, get Rax King on the show. Blue Sky's biggest bald man appreciator.
We got 30 seconds into the Sci-Fi podcast before Dylan started talking about Star Trek. That is honestly longer than I thought it would be.
Buddy, it's going to happen a lot.
What do we know? What could be? How are they in socially free? Everything I can need, oh I need, oh I need, oh I need, oh what could be? Oh what could be? Oh what could be? Oh what could be? Oh.
Welcome to Workers Lit, your favorite podcast about fighting for the narrative. We are joined today by Dalton and Dylan, the creators of Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe and hosts of Pod Universe, where they are creating an entire cinematic universe of films entirely written, workshopped, and performed in podcast format. They are absolute whizzes in the sci-fi genre, ready to talk about the genre's potential in the battle for the narrative. Framed by an author you've long wanted us to cover, the great Philip K. Dick and his story Minority Report. Dalton and Dylan, how are y'all doing?
Good. Yeah, doing great.
Yeah, feeling okay. Feeling normal because of how normal everything is in the world.
Everything's good.
Feeling normal
Yes.
is a great answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
My phone definitely didn't drive me into a rage today, so.
Yeah, I saw
For
you
sure.
posting some real, I am trying not to post through it so much as to help others post through it.
I'm in cope mode today. I'm heavy coping today, so yeah.
How are you all doing?
I was going to say I shared this on Anime Sickos when I went on a couple days ago, but I was in a coffee shop the other day. The lady at the coffee shop asked the guy in front of me, "How are you doing today?" And he goes, "I'm contemplative." And
That rules. When will Anime Sickos invite me on? Jeez.
Anime Sickos, lads, the die has been cast.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What the fuck?
I summarized what y'all do, but you could summarize it better before we get into this, because people don't listen to plugs at the end, because people have things to do, jobs to get to, workouts to finish. What do y'all do so people can hear about the cool work y'all are doing over at Pod Universe?
Oh boy, it is a high concept podcast for sure. So we started with a podcast called Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe? Which was based on the 2017 film The Mummy with Tom Cruise.
So that was supposed to be Universal's big Marvel killer, right?
Yeah.
Except for that they completely blew it and never spoke of it again.
They made one movie and canceled the entire franchise, even after announcing all their phase 1 movies and actors and everything.
Mm-hmm. So what we did is we wrote those movies and then a bunch more until we completed a 30-film saga that we wrote, workshopped, read aloud on and performed on the air, sometimes with a cast, always with an original score.
Yep.
And when we finished that, we started our own all original cinematic universe of sci-fi movies that we're never going to shoot and just read to each other.
Yeah, we got sick of having the sort of Damocles of copyright law sort of dangling over our heads. And so we decided we'd do the same thing, where we build a Hollywood cinematic universe of original stuff, because mostly the big cinematic universes are based on established properties. You got your Godzilla and King Kong, you got your Marvel, you got your Star Wars
it's kind of become something
It
like
has
that.
become
yeah.
something like that.
But
So-
what we're doing is we're playing with different science fiction subgenres, and we are writing what I kind of think of right now is the pod universe is more of a setting than a story at the moment. We are writing stories you can jump into. We have thrillers, we have a space opera, we have a cool time travel story, we have a comedy coming up. They are all set around the basic conceit of watching these two timelines that splintered off from each other. But they are all mostly self-contained, and part of the whole enjoyment of it is that in between us reading scenes and going through it, we stop, we talk about our process, we pick each other's work apart, and we celebrate the joy of storytelling.
Yeah, and we also have guests on to pitch us their own sort of Hollywood remakes of classic sci-fi movies and things like that.
Vera Drew came on and pitched her version of Jurassic Park, which is wild. Josh Gondelman.
I was going to say that's a great episode.
Oh,
thank you.
To the extent that we can take credit for how great that episode is, we will thank you. We will convey your thanks to
Vera's amazing.
The author herself. Josh Gondelman came in and surprised us with a very sincere and intriguing pitch for a remake of The Happening.
Yeah,
like there's different degrees of like sincerity to lunacy that we get from our guests, but
we cast all these with real actors who are not involved, and pick directors and stuff, and
we kind of create a picture of what that movie is for our audience to enjoy and to try and dream into existence.
And it's free.
Awesome.
Well,
that sounds really cool.
It is a fundamentally sick podcast. It is so cool. Yeah, so our records indicate you are essentially sci-fi geniuses as a result of your work on this.
Not me.
You're shaking your head no, but I'm powering through. As one of the co-hosts, I'm allowed to just make things true in the podcast.
Great, cool.
I'm making it true. What about the genre speaks to you? That you've working with it now, that you've gotten through the "Are you afraid of the dark" universe? Presumably you did solve the question, are you afraid of the dark, yes or no? But people will have to go back and listen to those episodes to know the answer to that. But what about sci-fi really speaks to you? And of course, Aisha, Lenore, y'all are also, we can also chime in should we feel so inclined.
Well, Dylan is really...
Am I going first?
Yeah, I think so, because I've always been the horror person. Dylan's been the sci-fi person. So when we did the dark universe, we were in my wheelhouse. Now we're kind of playing in Dylan's wheelhouse.
Although, Dalton, you've afforded yourself quite nicely in the science fiction.
Well, thank you. Well, you did well in the horror
Thank you.
side
I wasn't
of things,
fishing, but I was. The science fiction to me, I mean, I was raised by Twilight Zone and Star Trek, and I love the way that a science fiction story can explore an idea and reframe it in a way that can sometimes sidestep your existing biases and force you to reanalyze yourself or your world from a new perspective. That's something that I adore about science fiction and often lament when it's absent in a work of science fiction. Sometimes I get a little too obsessed with trying to make everything very political. But science fiction was my...
We're familiar with that sort of energy, yeah. We've been there.
But there's also the superficial stuff. Like, I love space and aliens and robots and strange powers and just a lot of... I like what ifs, and that's what storytelling is built out of at the end of the day. It's you're asking a series of questions, and the more fanciful the questions, the more interesting the answers.
Lenore, I know you're about to talk about Philip K. Dick, but what is your relationship to science fiction, you feel like?
I mean, just in general, I'm more of a as far as like reading objectively goes, I read more nonfiction than anything these days. But like, I was always more of a fantasy girly growing up. Like, my house was full of like sci-fi trade paperbacks. My parents had like a bunch of Star Trek books, a bunch of Chalker, a bunch of Cherry. My sibling was the one who that kind of stuck to. I was more a fan of like the Buffy books, right? I liked horror. I liked more fantasy stuff. But science fiction, now and then I kind of bounce off the hard stuff. But like I do see, the speculative element does speak to me. In particular, how it draws commonalities between seemingly very disparate sorts of people. I'm thinking right now of the three-body problem, right? How, humans versus aliens, opposite sides of the universe, yet still, fundamentally solving the problem of isolation, right? So yeah, three-body, when it's done really good, it's that. When it's done really bad, go back to our Frankowski episode, Cross-Time Engineer.
Shout out to the guy from Hong Kong who emailed us after we did the three-body problem episode and said we really should cover it in the original Mandarin. I was like, fuck you.
Hey, I'm learning Mandarin right now.
Yeah,
Maybe
Dalton, have Dalton back on to do the Mandarin version
in like
How
5
sick
years.
would that be?
Yeah.
when I can do
If
that.
you Dalton, if you can read something as dense as the three-body problem in Mandarin in 5 years,
Yeah,
that would
that's-
be not even John Cena could accomplish such a feat.
I'm calling my shot.
So-
I'm calling my shot.
Well, Aisha, you've written sci-fi. Sugar
Yeah.
Shadows is sort of a sci-fi.
Yeah,
What?
I've written some sci-fi. Yeah, I mean, I was raised by a sci-fi author. So to me, sci-fi has always been like part of my life. I like taking something that's very alien and sort of putting it into like when you read a story, like I was thinking about it in terms of Minority Report. Like this is a story about like pre-crime and mutants that act like computers and stuff, but it really is about a man having a midlife crisis, and also like the way that systems use violence to perpetuate themselves, right? Like that's what that story is about. And sci-fi can take these very alien settings and project and just use them to tell a story like about a guy, which I like. I like a thing with a guy who's just like one of my I'm also a big horror fan. And I think I'm on record saying that my favorite kind of horror is just like when a like terrifying eldritch creature is obsessed with some guy. That's like my favorite kind of thing. So yeah, something that kind of bashes the sort of mundane together with the extraordinary is the kind of stuff that I like.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I you say, it's about these problems with these systems of midlife crisis. My understanding is this short story is actually about how it would be cool if we did this. And that we should do this in real life.
It's actually about how we should build the Torment Nexus.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why haven't we yet?
There's a brief moment of self-reflection where they're like, maybe we've actually been doing the wrong thing this whole time. And about 5 pages later, they're like, no.
And the guy is like,
I'm
no,
sure
I
we'll get to it."
I have to kill a man so we can keep doing the not killing a man machine.
Yeah.
Listen,
I
if
think
we can
about
just have
this-
one rotating Omelis kid.
Yeah.
I've always said this. You need a good guy with a precog machine to stop a bad guy
That's
with
so
a
true.
precog machine.
Thank you.
This
Well,
this whole situation, Minority Report, which I had never read the original text prior to this. I'd seen the Spielberg movie many times. It reminds me of there's a phenomenon in baseball where a guy had essentially pitched a perfect game, but an umpire made a mistake on the final out that cost him the perfect game. And the commissioner's answer to this question was basically yes, this is fundamentally unfair, but we can't just... I can see now that what we do here, the way that we handle this is bad. But if we were to correct this problem, we would have to correct a lot of problems. So instead, we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
That's kind of the response
Yeah,
that
like
John
literally,
Anderton
it's like,
has.
It's like the like what is it the thing that Pam Bondi said about the Epstein files. Well, if we if we hold everybody accountable, the government will collapse. I'm like, do not threaten me with a good time.
and then she went on to scream about the Dow is over 50,000, as if I'm seeing any of that shit.
If we write this wrong, wouldn't that set the precedent that we have to right other wrongs? Do we really want to set the precedent that we're going to make the world a better place?
They were actually dealing with the minor report, not the Minority Report.
Oh.
I mean,
Zing.
listen, like on the day of recording, I think we woke up to the airspace over El Paso being closed and then promptly unclosed, like not a lot later. for the government says, of course, it's like drug cartels sending like robots over the border or whatever.
I heard
That's
about
right.
that.
Fortunately, our precog machines got them. Yeah.
Apparently, it's actually like Fort Bliss was like shooting lasers or something, and the FAA hadn't cleared it.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
So
Well-
like I'll consider that, like, in terms of like how the world is and how the news cycle is, I'll consider that like I don't know, I'm used to it at this. I'm used to something like that. It's relatively anodyne.
Oh, now
Well-
you need a permit to shoot lasers whenever you want. Okay, that's big government,
government.
overreach.
I thought this was
Absolutely.
America.
Well, before we get into Minority Report and then Sci-Fi more broadly, the more than we already have, Lenore is going to talk about Philip K. Dick. Does anyone have any, just at the top here? We got any good Philip K. Dick jokes? It's too easy. Anyone
Well,
got any
I
layups
came
here?
into this with, I'm a Dick virgin coming
Mhm.
into this episode.
Mm,
So I guess there's that.
I can't say the same.
I don't get it. What's the joke? What's
There's that picture that that has gone around social media, on the spine. It's like a sticker for like a book at a bookstore, and it says
Mhm.
"Do androids dream of," and then it says Dick.
The answer, you'll have to
read the book and find out.
Read on.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Ford doesn't seem to be dreaming of Dick in that movie, unfortunately.
mean-
in the Blade Runner adaptation. He should be, though.
Everybody debates whether or not he's dreaming about Dick in that movie. And Harrison Ford's interpretation is no, but he's not the sole author of that work. So
You have to watch the director's cut,
That-
okay?
I mean,
Where
But
there's a
this-
voiceover that explains that he is indeed dreaming about
The
Dick.
scene with the replicant in the rain is kind of erotic.
That's true.
I actually
That's
heard that the
true.
director was uncut. That
I have to go. I'm out of here.
That's true. In the original, it is crazy that there's a cut of that movie where Harrison Ford says the N-word, but that's neither here nor
There's
there.
like 14
Um,
cuts of that movie.
I'm not doing a bit, by the
There's
way,
like
if y'all
a-
haven't seen that
there's
cut.
a
There
cut
really
There's
is.
a cut of that movie where like the original cut of that movie had that terrible voiceover in it, and that's like one of
Yes.
the reasons the movie didn't do that good.
And that's where he says the slur,
Yeah.
yes.
There's that urban legend. It might be apocryphal, but the story used to go that Harrison Ford was so against the idea of voiceover in that movie that he intentionally just completely sandbagged it in the booth in the hopes they wouldn't use it. And then they used it
Honestly,
anyway.
I could believe it.
Yeah, because it is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, my pitch to Pod Universe, a
Mhm.
Blade Runner movie with more voiceover.
yeah.
A Blade
Okay,
Runner
you know
movie
what,
where
though?
Harrison Ford dreams of Dick.
Yes.
We can do both very easily because, for one thing, we're a podcast, and so
It's all
It's all
voiceover.
voiceover,
Yeah.
no matter what happens in the movie, including any and all full frontal nudity.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I feel like that's a request that we can accommodate for you.
And I will spill the beans here. Spoiler alert! But in our upcoming episode, Late Adopters, there will be a lot of full frontal nudity.
Awesome.
yeah.
You know what? It's
But
been sorely
audio
lacking so
version.
far in the new saga we've been doing.
That's right.
That's true.
I love to have some
Well, speaking-
audio penis.
Mhm.
Yeah. Speaking of audio penis, Lenore, tell us about Dick.
First of all, that's my least favorite band. But second of all, so yeah, Phil K. Dick, like, prolific guy, and we'll get into the why of how he was so prolific. But just at the top here,
Let me guess, cocaine?
different drug. So he lived to the age of 53, and in that time he wrote 45 novels, 121 short stories, 14 short story collections. Like, man was nonstop. Necessarily, we'll get into it. He was born December 16th, 1928, in Chicago. Also born on that day was his twin sister, who unfortunately died when she was 6 weeks old. This hit him hard, like, as soon as he was old enough to understand it. Ultimately, he blamed his mother for the sister's death. He didn't have a great relationship with his folks in general, in no small part because they divorced when he was 5. They moved to San
Can
Francisco.
I ask really quickly,
Yeah.
is there any like legitimacy to him blaming his mother for that, or was he just being an asshole?
I think he was just being an asshole.
Mm.
I looked into it, and I didn't find any reason. I didn't find any
Okay.
reason. So the mom didn't want to move. The dad did. He was transferred to Reno for his Department of Agriculture job. That's why they split. The mom and the son actually moved to D.C. for a couple of years, so I guess it was Reno that was the problem and not moving. And then they go back to California.
The man there.
Yeah, that's where he lives, is the Bay Area for most of his life. Fun fact, he and Ursula K. Le Guin, I found, were part of the same graduating class at Berkeley High, and they just never met.
Wait, they were part of the same graduating class and they never met?
They never met.
And they have the
How
same
big is
middle
Berkeley?
initial?
Yeah, right?
How
in the
big is
water.
Berkeley High that you like don't meet each other?
That's a good
I mean,
question.
I
Especially
they
having
ran.
a lot of overlapping interests.
I went to a high school where there were like people that I probably never spoke to. I went to a pretty big high school.
Okay,
Private
this-
Christian school over here. That is not a problem we had.
Okay,
We
a
knew
few
each other
thousand
real
students.
well.
It's plausible. It's plausible.
Alternate timeline where they dated, and I don't know. Write the
God,
fan
can you-
fiction from there.
Actually, I'm kind of glad that he didn't inflict himself on her.
Okay.
We'll understand why. So he goes to UC Berkeley. He drops out after a couple of months, citing ongoing anxiety and his opposition to, like, he had to do mandatory ROTC training while you were there, and he wasn't about that.
Fuck
Now,
the system.
it must be said, from 7th grade onward, he periodically suffered from extreme vertigo, particularly during his time in college. He was actually diagnosed with schizophrenia at one point in his later teens, but like there's conflicting accounts of this because other doctors would offer conflicting diagnoses throughout his life. Some would tell him that, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you, you're perfectly fine. So, like, whatever was going on, he didn't get the help that he needed, which is unfortunate. But it's this personal struggle that he channels into a lot of his characters. This idea that there's something about his reality, there's something about his perception that he can't quite nail down. That's fucky, and he's subject to it nonetheless. So now his first encounter with sci-fi. While we're talking about first encounters, this was with Stirring Science Stories in 1940 when he was 12.
I love how shit used to be named.
Just pick an adjective, pick science, off to the races.
Oh yeah.
The good old
Just
pulp
whatever,
days, yeah.
And so he compares his findings to the Oz books, right? This, he surmises, is magic told with science and not with like magic wands, right? He said that my view became magic equals science, and the science of the future equals magic.
He was
Fairly
Arthur
similar-
C. Clarke maxing.
I was about to say, yeah, fairly similar to Clark's contention, which was, he said this in an interview in 1968. Earlier that year was when Clark's third law dropped any sufficiently advanced technology, that sort of thing. Now, by his early 20s, he also did what you're supposed to do and read widely outside his chosen genre. He read a lot of French realists like Stendhal, like Flaubert. He read Finnegan's Wake before he was in college. And he cited James T. Farrell, author of the Studs Lonigan books, as a major influence on his structure. Farrell notably walked the Trotskyist to neoconservative pipeline. So, like, there was a similar, though less clearly defined trajectory to Dick, as we'll see. Are y'all familiar with Studs Lonigan?
Andy Boyd reference in this. Interesting.
It's all connected.
I'm familiar with who? Sorry.
Studs Lonigan?
I can't say that I am.
Not.
Studs.
So, Studs Lonigan.
that
yeah.
and
so
that
we
her
have
name
Dick-
Studs.
We have Dick
There-
and Studs.
There were fewer names back then.
That's
I don't know. It feels like there were more. I haven't met a stud.
I think we got rid of that one
Yeah.
somewhere along the way. Yeah.
Let's
If
bring
there are
it
any Studses listening, sound off. But yeah, so it's a series of books about this working class Irishman, right? He tries to build a life for himself, and he's ground down and destroyed by capitalism, right? And this is a theme that you see a lot in Dick's work. I'm given to understand,
Yeah.
right? His protagonists tend to be common working people or like functionaries, dealing with the prospect of everything they perceive being illusionary, right? He's like if Lovecraft were slightly less pessimistic and racist.
Lib Lovecraft. Okay.
Libcraft. Oh my god.
Libcraft.
Livecraft is good. Livecraft is really good.
Yeah.
That's a
And
good
she-
online handle.
That
HB
would actually be a
Livecraft.
really good
Yeah.
like piece of merch. Livecraft.
We'll take 10%. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. The Workers Lit store. It doesn't exist, but do you want it to? Sound off. This is like the third thing we've said to sound off.
We did a Pod Universe store, and it has not been successful, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
We just need to keep sounding off. Eventually,
Nobody
Yeah,
has
we
any
gotta sound
fucking
off.
money anymore.
That's
That's
really,
true.
yeah.
That's probably a contributing factor. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all
Actually, the
passing around
Dow
same
was
thing.
over 50,000. Doesn't that help
The
you?
economy's better than it's ever been.
That's so true.
Listen, Bitcoin is tumbling right now. Just buy the dip.
Yeah, it's at like
Buy the
69.
dip.
It was at 69 before I saw
Nice.
69,000.
If it gets to 67, that'll be real exciting. And also, we'll buy the dip. Yeah.
So he sells his first story in 1951. He's 22 at this time. He takes to writing full time almost immediately. Do not do this, and you'll see why. He starts publishing
It'll
in
work
Planet
out.
Stories, in If, in the magazine of fantasy and sci-fi, and he's super prolific. He publishes 7 stories in June 1953 alone. Sometimes under
You
pen
couldn't
names.
submit online either. Like, you had to mail that shit.
Oh yeah. That's you're doing that constantly. If you're like, sometimes he publishes under pen names specifically to get around restrictions on multiple stories by the same author in the same issue of a given magazine.
That's awesome.
Rules.
And he's so confident about this that he quits his day job in retail not long after. It is in one of these magazines, incidentally, called Fantastic Universe, that the Minority Report is first published in 1956.
Okay.
Now, in 54, he goes to an SF convention. He meets one of his idols, A.E. Van Vogt, and a conversation with him convinces Dick that, okay, novels are the way to go if I really want to make money, right? And so he puts out his
Big
first
bucks.
novel, Solar Lottery, the following year. Yeah, huge bucks.
Novels used to make money? Whoa.
Bigger bucks than now,
Crazy to
for
hear.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And bigger bucks than short stories, I
Yeah,
guess,
for
if you
sure.
can sell them.
Well, to hear him tell it, like, he kind of got lucky with his first outing. Like, Solar Lottery went on to
won the
sell
Solar
300,000 copies over the next
Which is a
20
lot
years.
for back then.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. When your average
I know.
sci-fi novel, to hear him tell it, sells like 40 to 50,000 books over its entire run. Yeah. Now he puts out 16 of these novels from 1959 to 1964. Imagine
Sorry.
reading- Yeah,
How many novels?
16 novels from the period of 1959 to 1964. He is
Yeah.
constant.
We're moving at C.S. Lewis
Jesus.
rates.
I mean, this
That's
is
that's like faster than the magnetic fields puts out albums.
I mean, this makes like I'm a big fan of like mid-century pulp, like specifically pulp horror, but like sci-fi feeds into this stuff as well. And yeah, like the understanding I get is like you're just pumping this stuff out like as rapidly as possible. I was reading about one author and like his like 24-hour novel method, where basically he would come up with a premise and it's just like work ahead, like you jot down like a bunch of complications on note cards and you just start writing, and anytime you don't know what comes next, you draw a note card and like keep going. And so and the Dick that I've read has that kind of first draft quality
Oh,
to
absolutely.
it, of just like I am getting this out the door, and like it's up to, and like I'm sure at these magazines these were not like heavily edited either, like everything was just really fast pipelines for this kind of stuff, and you can kind of tell while reading it that it's like
The Minority Report is littered with sentences that feel like placeholders to, okay, describe what this is at some point, and instead you'll end up with just something really adverb happy.
I clocked like one thing with like
yeah.
3 sentences in a row that were scheduled the same like adverb structure, like repeated,
and I was banging my head against my keyboard because there's certain points where it's like where he will is the thing where he's describing the intention behind what somebody's doing instead of describing how they're expressing that intention, and it'll happen regardless of who the viewpoint character is, which makes me kind of crazy.
But also I would argue for this kind of stuff, like, doesn't matter. Like, these aren't.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, I feel like the prose are perfectly serviceable for what they're doing. Like, I don't think that they're like sparkling prose, but they don't have to be.
It's about capturing the imagination of the reader, right? Like a lot of the people reading this, especially there were a lot of like kids reading this stuff at the time, but even adults, like it's about the idea, it's not about the particulars of the sentence structure and stuff. It's
And
about
I get
a cool
that there is
idea.
a distinction here between a novel and this kind of short story is very similar to the distinction between a film and an episode of television. It's a matter of how much time you have to set up each shot, right? How much intent can you put into every idea on the schedule that you have, on the budget that you have, and get this thing out in time to get paid and make the next one. I get it. However, I went a little bit crazy anyway.
That's interesting. I didn't even notice the prose. I wasn't thinking about it at all. Like, I think they're invisible.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I think that's what you want for a book like that, for something like this. You want invisible prose.
Yeah, there's a certain rarefaction and streamlining that like draws your attention more to the idea he's expressing, certainly.
That's the thing is like one thing that struck me about this is just how fast it moves. Like to the point where I felt like I wasn't really ever getting a strong sense of character. Everything everyone said kind of felt pretty functional, either explaining the ideas, these new ideas that are sort of filling this world, or getting us to the next complication or plot point. But at no point was I like, man, Anderton is that's a guy I know. I've met that.
That's not the point of the story.
It's not the point. It's just it is moving rapid fire, and you are squeezing this action-packed thing into. I'm sure he had a hard word limit, and he just needed to get it all in.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I am a short story writer. I have never written a novel, but I have written a lot of short stories, and it is a very different thing. Although nowadays, if you want someone to publish your short story, your prose does have to be really good, typically.
Yeah.
When I went to school for writing, and short story was where they really ground a lot of the technical stuff to you. And what I was taught was that when you're doing a short story, every sentence needs to do more than one thing. Every word is more valuable because you have fewer of them. And so nothing that you write should be purely mechanical, should be purely functional, because you have only so much time to get your feelings across. And so you want to be dense and you want to be layered. Granted, I don't think that they were thinking about writing short stories in the 50s and 60s and trying to get this shit out because you're going to have to publish 12 stories this year in order to pay rent. I don't think that was something they were thinking about.
I do love that he's like, as you know, a computer works like this. I was like, because he has to tell his audience how computers work.
Well, I think though it makes a lot of sense, regardless of how it hits your sensibilities, whether it just kind of goes down smoothly but unimpressively, or whether it's annoying. It makes sense given the sort of mode of production we're working with here, given the just like clock in and get as many of these motherfuckers done as possible mode that Dick was working with here. I'll say before we really, really get into this any further, Lenore, did you have anything else in the bio that you wanted to hit on?
Well, there is a reason that he was so prolific, of course. His personal life wasn't great. He has problems with amphetamine abuse during the 60s because if he isn't prolific, he doesn't eat, right? He tries to break into the mainstream with his fiction, like into non-science fiction stuff. He writes like a dozen books. I think he only publishes one of those during his lifetime. He gives up on that, incidentally, the same year that he wins a Hugo for Man in the High Castle in 1963. So, it's sort of a message to, stay in your lane. So he would release like 21 novels in the 60s, but his drug problems do lead to a divorce from Nancy Hackett, his fourth wife. By the way, he married 5 times.
My
over his
goodness.
lifetime.
Prolific in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Incidentally, he had one kid from each of his latter 3 marriages, including his middle daughter, who went on to be a producer and a writer for Amazon, including on The Man in the High Castle, that adaptation. Her name, Izza.
Izza?
Is a Dick?
Is a Dick?
That's
Izza, maybe?
Incredible. No, you know what? It's probably is it ISA?
It's ISA.
Yeah,
it's
Isa.
Isa, right?
Isa.
Isa Dick.
It's
Still.
Arabic for
That's-
Jesus.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe worse.
Jesus Dick.
Actually,
Jesus
Dick,
Dick,
yeah.
yeah.
That's much cooler. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
yeah, like I'm I don't have to really get into the rest of like the nuts and bolts of his life, but like he was kind of all over the place politically, emotionally in his latter years. Again, he didn't
Amphetamines will do that to you.
yeah. He ultimately dies in 1982 from a series of strokes. And again, like
Amphetamines will also do that to
Yes.
you.
Yeah. And he didn't see I mean he saw modest success, but never to the degree of a Heinlein, never to the degree of an Asimov.
He saw a rough cut of Blade Runner before he died.
Oh,
Did he really?
Yes.
Do we think it had the voiceover in it?
I don't know.
Oh, I hope not. But that's the thing, like all of the Blade Runner, like the stuff that came out post him, that's what really puts him on the map, like in a wider consciousness. The only adaptation of his work released during his lifetime was an episode of a British TV series called Out of This World, based on a short story of his. Since his death, we've had, as you say, Blade Runner 2049, based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. We had 2 adaptations of Total Recall based on We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. We had Minority Report, of course. We had A Scanner Darkly. Next, based on The Golden Man. The Adjustment Bureau, based on Adjustment Team. Of course, we had The Man in the High Castle on Prime in 2015. Films alone, based on his work, have grossed over $1 billion.
Paycheck.
He cited
too,
as,
right?
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's one of his.
Paycheck.
Which one?
Mhm.
Paycheck.
Oh,
John
yeah.
Woo did
Yes.
a movie.
I will say one of our Pod Universe films, Los Alamos, was very influenced by the Adjustment Bureau.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, not to mention Wolfenstein from Man in a High Castle, highly influenced by that. There's a lot. I mean, and he's just a highly influential writer. It always bums me out when somebody really just doesn't quite get to see the full effects of their work. We had a similar thing with Bram Stoker.
I do have one more thing that'll bum you out.
Oh well,
Great.
let's hear it. I love being bummed out.
So about 20 years ago, some fans of his, like some robotics people, put together an android of Philip K. Dick. Looks very realistic, but like they used like AI at the time to kind of scrape his works so he could have like a body of information to draw from and like hold conversations with people. There's video of this thing. It's uncanny. Not uncanny in the sense of it's accurate, just in the sense that, oh my god, this thing looks like an animated corpse. And incidentally, like if in much the same way that we have come to expect weirdness from AI today, the robot Dick is asked questions like, where were you born? To which he answers, I like games like poker and blackjack where you get some money. What's your favorite color? I don't know why it happened, but we should try to figure it out.
Classic.
Can you tell me something about your favorite movie? They just asked me to tell him the serial number and the length of the barrel.
Those classic quotes from Philip K. Dick.
Yeah.
The more things change.
Fortunately, AI got really good since then.
Oh yeah.
Now it's awesome. It works.
Now it's awesome, and we like bringing people back from the dead with it. Was there anything else about Philip K. Dick as a guy that we wanted to say? I had one thing, but I wanted to let anybody else who wanted to say something say something.
I mean, it's unfortunate that he has a.
It's a shame that were you gonna say it's a shame that he never got any of his mental illnesses addressed?
That somebody who has problems throughout his life with his perception of reality, that on the one hand, did he channel it into some genuinely compelling work? Yes, but one wishes that he hadn't had to make a choice between sanity and his work.
Yeah
And eating,
Many such cases.
I would add too that I think, and as we're about to get into, Philip K. Dick is a great example of how sci-fi can broaden perspectives of what is possible, and think about, here's a channel we could go down. Here's what a future could look like. Here's an idea we haven't thought about. He's also very good at capturing feelings.
we can build the torment nexus.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the torment nexus has been built in many scenarios. And we've talked about other sci-fi writers. We've talked about books like Snow Crash, where, capitalists went and took horrible ideas from, it. But I think is a great example of that kind of what sci-fi is capable of. And we will talk a little bit more about that at the end of the episode, just sci-fi more broadly. But I just wanted to put a pin in that I think, like, if you're thinking about like a quintessential author who is maybe not writing with a super I'm not saying he's not being political or he doesn't have a goal, but it's not writing with he's sitting down to get across a singular political point with all of his work the way other sci-fi writers like that are also great. Like we've talked about Octavia Butler 3 times on this show. She had a very particular political angle she was pushing very effectively. Philip K. Dick has political opinions that he's pushing, but he is also spending a lot of his work just being like, wouldn't it be cool if, wouldn't it be interesting if? He's like throwing out hypothetical questions.
Minority Report feels very political to me. And maybe it's just like my like living in 2026 brain, but I think that it feels very, very political.
I do think it is. I think he is also doing a bit of a wouldn't it be crazy if, but he definitely is making political points here. I don't want to undersell that. I just think it's he as an author is more interested generally in just showing us different scenarios of things that can be. But I mean, also he's got works where it's like you got to put in a quarter to open your door in the morning, and that feels very real.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
boy.
then he threatens the door, and the door says, "I'll sue you."
I mean, one of the biggest
Ring camera
examples I always think about when we talk about this, like sci-fi authors who sort of, saw the way things, or like predicted major events and stuff. I mean, H.G. Wells' The World Set Free, he was the first person to theorize about an atomic bomb. And then that Leo Szilard, the physicist, read that. And then when the atom was first split, he thought of it and was like, oh, wait, this could be used to make a bomb. Like and then he was the one who kicked off America's nuclear program. And it was all because he had read H.G. Wells. Like it is arguable that the Manhattan Project may not have happened if H.G. Wells hadn't written The World Set Free, because
turns
that
out
was
video
what put
games
the
does
idea.
cause violence.
And I mean, to be fair, Leo Szilard's point was not, hey, we should build this, but like, hey, we should stop this because this is now possible,
Yeah,
and
but then you take that same
led to
information
it
out of the hands of a well-meaning scientist and give it to a politician who smells blood and sniffs out power.
The Metal
that's
Gear,
probably like
the Metal Gear dilemma.
Yes.
It is absolutely like
someone just said the magic words.
the biggest example of the
Metal
torment nexus is the nuclear bomb.
Yes.
I'm envisioning now a short story where somebody goes back in time and tries to prevent Wells from writing that story.
Instead of
John
killing Hitler,
Scalzi-
you kill H.G. Wells.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Aisha, because John Scalzi has a short story that's about like it's basically what if recreationally you could go back in time and like influence history, and it's a series of people going back and like trying to kill Hitler, but then like history spins off in like unpredictable ways, and eventually it ends with like a series of wars that results in the destruction of humanity, and I think it's a race of sentient squids that build civilization, and that happens to stick. And then 2 million years later, one of them finally lands on the moon.
That sounds good to me.
Squid.
The ironic thing about trying to stop H.G. Wells from writing a novel is that you do have to use a time machine. Yeah.
Oh shit!
So you got to be careful
this
about.
writes itself.
All right.
This is actually a good short
I
story.
gotta go back and stop him from
This
writing
might
that
actually be
one,
good.
and we'll create a little paradox.
Well, before we can go back in time, we gotta look forward in time to see if people do a crime. I don't know. That's a segue there. Minority Report. This is a story about a man who is getting bald and fat and old, as we established at the top. His name is John Anderton, and he proves that cops have always looked like thumbs. And he founded a little something called the Minority. No, it's not called the Minority Report, is it? God
No.
damn it.
It's called the pre-crime. It's like called
Yeah.
pre-crime or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
And
called
yes,
pre-crime. It's
pre-crime
called-
can still get you pregnant. Let's get that out of the way now.
Imagine your name being Anderton. Like, what the fuck? Anderton.
that's
It
just
sounds
like-
like somebody's lisping Anderson.
Well, I think
Hugo
it's just
Weaving
like kind of like
Mr.
a cheap
Anderton.
way to be like, it's the future. Everything is just a little bit different.
Yeah, it's It's the same thing. Naming him Anderton is the same thing of saying, and now I'm being sent to Centaurion 6. You know, like those are
it's
equivalent
like
choices.
Star Wars, where they have a guy named Tim, but it's spelled with a Y.
Well, we should talk. You know, John at the beginning is very insecure because a hot guy named Ed Whitworth shows up. He's like, "I'm your new assistant."
Yeah, he's like, "Oh no, this twink is too powerful. He's going to destroy my life."
Says this young hot guy clearly wants my job and my wife. He just instantly is
and
like,
this guy is literally just standing there.
The speed to which he turns on his wife is astounding.
Yeah.
He just
hates his wife.
He sees her and he's like, she did this. It was definitely her.
My hot top wife.
And not that this excuses his line of thought or what he does, of course, but like it is an anxiety that I can plausibly see from somebody who, you know, very much like Marcos Tejo in Tender as the Flesh, right, took part in building something that has rendered an entire mode of thought in constructing society completely obsolete. Right. So if something as monumental as that can be rendered obsolete, you know, why not just a guy like him?
Well, also this is a story about paranoia, right? Like he is extremely paranoid throughout this whole story, and they really are out to get him, but they're really only out to get him because of what he has done himself. Right. And this is like a paranoid culture based around this paranoia machine.
He's a guy who's built his whole career around controlling the future, and then an element he can't control that represents the future walks through his door and threatens to replace him as the future inevitably does to the present.
Right.
I think it would be good if we quoted now from what precog is precisely. You've probably gotten the idea of it. Does someone want to read the quote that I've put in the notes here?
You've probably grasped the basic legalistic drawback to pre-crime methodology. We're taking in individuals who have broken no law, but surely they will, Whitwer affirmed with conviction. Happily, they don't, because we get them first, before they can commit an act of violence. So the commission of the crime itself is absolute metaphysics. We claim they're culpable. They, on the other hand, eternally claim they're innocent. And, in a sense, they are innocent. In our society, we have no major crimes, Anderton went on, but we do have a detention camp full of would-be criminals. Doors opened and closed, and they were in an analytical wing. Ahead of them rose impressive banks of equipment, the data receptors, and the computing mechanisms that studied and restructured the incoming material. And beyond the machinery sat the three precogs, almost lost to view in the maze of wiring. In the gloomy half-darkness, the three idiots sat babbling. Every incoherent utterance, every random syllable was analyzed, compared, reassembled in the form of visual symbols, transcribed on conventional punch cards, and ejected into various coded slots. All day long, the idiots babbled, imprisoned in their special high-backed chairs, held in one rigid position by metal bands and bundles of wiring, clamps. Their physical needs were taken care of automatically. They had no spiritual needs. Vegetable-like, they muttered and dozed and existed. Their minds were dull, confused, lost in shadows. But not the shadows of today. The three gibbering, fumbling creatures with their enlarged heads and wasted bodies were contemplating the future. The analytical machinery was recording prophecies, and as the three precog idiots talked, the machinery carefully listened.
Three idiots.
So you've got the idea.
Three idiots babbling all day. It's crazy that Philip K. Dick also predicted podcasts. Same story.
I love it. I love it. That would be a great name for a podcast. Three idiots babbling all day. Yeah, right here we have, this is precog. It not just summarizes what it is in the sense of how it works in the world, but also how it works mechanically. They've got three people. They've basically got the, like, I forget what they called them, the people that stopped the earthquakes from the 5th season, strapped into the chairs going on. But in this case, they are just getting fed, and they are seeing the future due to some mutation. Don't think about it too hard. They're linked up with the computer, and they're telling you what's going to happen. They're putting out every day a list of crimes that's going to happen, and the police will go and arrest you for the crime that you have not yet done. Can anyone see any problems with this? This seems pretty ethically fine to me.
Seems like a dream. Yeah, we should. I wish we had this kind
This
of
is
thing.
how we're going to live once we in our beautiful AI future, right? When there's no more jobs, we'll all just be in a chair, shitting into a bag, and then having that shit turned into a goop we can have go through a feeding tube into our bodies while we
finally some use to the shit I put in the bag.
Absolutely.
So now we can have Aisha's ethics corner, because it's kind of an
Yes.
interesting suggestion, because at least from the way, like, the popular consensus of free will amongst analytical American philosophers is basically we already have this system, and we always have, because a lot of people don't believe that free will exists. So everyone who is in prison for having committed a crime is technically innocent, because they could not have done otherwise. So I think that it's a really interesting, like, what are the ethics of preventing someone from committing a crime? Like, I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. Obviously, it gets misused in the fact that, like, obviously it happens in real life, and it's through, like, racial profiling. So, like, but I don't know. I think that if it was really an unbiased system, I think it is interesting. I don't think it's an automatically, like, is this bad? I do think it is bad, but like, I think
it comes down to what the
all
consequences
crime
are.
and punishment might be bad.
Yeah, I think we're in a world here too, though, where this works, right? Which is interesting. We are asked to assume that this thing basically functions. I mean, there's going to be a problem introduced later on that we'll get to of the Minority Report. But this thing basically is working in a way that, like, if they said, Grok, tell us who to arrest, obviously that would not work in the real world. He's also posing a philosophical question based along the lines Aisha was saying, that when we have to think about, they actually haven't had a murder in society in 5 years. If we lived in a world where there was a system that had stopped murders for 5 years, how would people feel about that? And it does make for an interesting question that complicates the question about just, like, police overreach.
Right.
I think it's a similar question, though, than we have in the actual application of the justice system, where, like, imagine if this system exists and it essentially means that someone is going to be dispatched to stop you from making the biggest mistake of your life. Just that half of it, that's amazing. That is objectively great. That is having a guardian angel.
It's like what Anderton's wife says. Like, wait, like, the Minority Report finding out about it stopped you. So couldn't we stop everybody? And he's like, no, don't think about that.
Yeah, but that's the half that sucks. The half that sucks is that they prevent you from making the mistake, but they punish you as if you made it. We don't know anything about the specifics of these rehabilitation camps and how humane they may or may not be. But to begin with, it's inhumane in the sense that you have not committed this crime. We're going to send you. We're going to punish you for a thing you haven't yet done. If it was just a matter of preventing that thing from happening, as you were saying, and as Anderton's wife says, most people would probably, if they found out, if you do this, first of all, you were thinking about doing this, and there's a world in which you do this, and you're going to get caught. They would simply choose not to do it or rethink it. But they're not given the option because we're addicted to the idea of punishing people.
Punishment, yeah.
I mean, the whole nature of imprisonment is sort of a light version of this, right? Like, that you do a crime, then we have to put you away because you could do it again. You know, like, it is the idea of locking someone up is because just the fact that we have determined that you did a crime means we have now identified that, you know,
that
you are a
criminal.
You're a crime doer.
You're a criminal.
Yeah.
You're a crime doer. You have to be put away.
Yeah.
You have to be removed from society. That's why it's the number one thing we do is imprison and not any other form of rehabilitation or punishment. It's like, you have proven yourself to be, the Minority Report system just takes away that initial infraction. But
Yes.
we're
What
already,
it's allowing you to do is to label a person as a criminal, which is evidently part of just, like, talking about current events, right? Is deciding, this person is a citizen and a legal person. This person is an illegal person.
Right.
This is a criminal, and anything we do to that person because they are a criminal is therefore justifiable. It's not
Right.
about the deed. It's about creating a class of people.
I was going to say, I have a strong suspicion we are creeping ever closer to Lenore's Alec Carcastanis corner.
Well, because yes, exactly. Like, because the question that he would ask and the question that I'm asking is, what are the conditions that breed crime, right?
Right.
What about poverty? What about institutional barriers to finding work, right? What constitutes a crime in this society as would be picked up by pre-crime, by these precogs, right? Are we picking up
What about the
CEOs?
Anglo-Chinese War that apparently happened that we
Is
don't
war
learn
not a
anything else
crime?
about?
Yeah. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in real life too, it's like, in a way, we are creating, our society creates criminals and then punishes them, right? Like, which is what happens to Anderton in this story. The system compels him to become a murderer.
Yes.
Which is like
Yeah.
how the system works in real life. Like, that's the part that I found really interesting about this story. Like, the whole precog thing is like whatever, but like the idea of it being a story about how a system itself causes violence in order to perpetuate them itself is what's interesting to me.
Well, and as well, how the system is described and sold, right? Like, there's this quote here that I adore from early on. With the aid of your precog mutants, you've boldly and successfully abolished the post-crime punitive system of jails and fines. As we all realize, punishment was never much of a deterrent, and could scarcely have afforded comfort to a victim already dead. Which, sure, yes. But the thing of it is, like, again, Alec Carcastanis, go back to our propaganda episode, as I always say. He writes and speaks at length about like how pro-carceral narratives in our society, right, are frequently couched in calls for care, for like community policing, for support, right, without much like diving deep into how our carceral state, our punishment bureaucracy, as he calls it, spends this money, right? It's just taken as a given that funding it and reforming it and giving it more and more resources is what you do to fix a fundamentally broken system, right? And so it's here that you see how it's that very dynamic that I think Dick's very prescient in presenting how this thing is sold to us, right? Like, yes, punishment is not a deterrent. Yes, we know the fundamental moral turpitude of our carceral system. To argue otherwise functions on the level of climate science denial. But if the state as it currently exists, IRL, ever comes around to this language, it'll be exactly for the reason of justifying pre-crime policing.
Right.
Yeah, like we have right now and have always had the means to eliminate crime before it happens. It's called improving society. But we don't want to do that. We want to find a way to say, oh, well, it's this guy. This guy's a bad apple, and so he's got to go away. And I hear that all these ideas are examined with just really thoroughly in the new Chris Pratt film Mercy. And it really picks up the slack that this story has left behind. So everyone get out there to the cinemas in 4DX and watch Chris Pratt sit in a chair and think about this stuff.
I mean, we've known this for like decades and decades. Like under the Nixon administration, you have a commission report that suggests that like mass incarceration doesn't work. No new jails should be built. All the juvenile ones should be shut down. Right? Like the diagnosis is already there. There are material reasons and incentives and class interests driving the fact of it not being implemented.
Well, for the sake of the audience, let me just sort of summarize the rest of the plot that happens here. Going forward, the prediction is that John Anderton is going to kill a guy named Leopold Kaplan. Leopold is a guy who's basically a retired general from an Anglo-Chinese war we don't learn much about, but he runs a society of military guys. It's basically the St. Nick Society from One Battle After Another, feels like to me.
You almost said Every Young Man's Battle.
Yeah, Every Young Man's Battle, that's right. Fred Stoker's One Battle After Another. Fucking that's my Pod Universe pitch. basically he's like, oh, well, my bitch wife and this new guy clearly planted this evidence against me. So he ends up in this whole situation where he's trying to prove, okay, this is bullshit, and basically finds out that, okay, there's the three idiots babbling. One of them can give a disagreeing report that's called the minority report, and it can be something else. And in so doing, he looks at the reports. The first report says, this guy, Leopold Kaplan, is going to do a military coup, and you're going to kill him to stop the military coup. Then the second one is, upon learning that information that you were going to kill him, you decided not to kill him. And he's like, see? The third one, upon learning that you were not going to kill him and that he was going to present this information to the public and say, see, pre-crime doesn't work. Let's have a military dictatorship instead of having police. You then kill him, thus proving the system works. That's the basic summary. Everything else that happens in the middle here is, to me, pretty like boring and unnecessary. The whole shit where he's like flying around in the ship with his wife, I don't give a shit about that. That's the meat of it, in my opinion.
I mean, I do want to say that ending, based on our conversation now, there is a generous read we could give of it, which the first time I read it, I was like, oh yeah, this story basically ends with them, deciding, oh, well, you just have to keep doing it. That's just the best option, which, zoom out a little bit, Philip K. Dick could be making the point that when you have a society that is purely built on military force and enforcement of these laws and not improving society, that you are always going to be locked into a flawed system, that when your option is cops or army, you are always, there is not a way in any of the three reports to escape the punitive justice system and find the improved version of society. That everyone's caught in that catch-22 of it's either war or categorization and punishment of people we don't like, and it's a kind of a cynical but accurate read of society in some ways.
I mean, I think that's what it is. Like, I think that he's saying these systems are violent systems that have created themselves and will continue to perpetuate violence, and people will give their lives to keep them going.
Mm-hmm. Right. We have a section here, and I'm just going to read it, where he and his wife are going back and forth. And Lisa, that's his wife, says, if pre-crime is to survive, you're thinking of your own safety, but think for a moment about the system. Which means more to you, your own personal safety or the existence of the system? My safety, Anderton answered without hesitation. You're positive? If the system can survive only by imprisoning innocent people, then it deserves to be destroyed. My personal safety is important because I'm a human being. And my note is, hypocrite, loser, lock him up. Right? Because of course his whole fucking life, and I mean, and obviously Dick is aware of this too, his whole fucking life is based around locking people up under these same conditions. I guarantee you every minority report almost says, they wouldn't have done a crime if you went and talked to them and gave them an alternate example of what to do. So that goes right back to what Aisha was talking about, but it sort of makes it emblematic there. And he's like, well, an innocent man, it's funny for sure.
Wait, I'm not on the, we should release the Epstein list. Sir, you are on the Epstein list. We shouldn't release the Epstein list.
Yeah. Well, what do we think about this ending where Anderton kills Leopold, thus proving the majority report? Is this a happy ending?
No.
Is it a sad ending?
I don't think it's a happy ending. I think it's we live in a society ending.
It definitely is one of those we're like taking the lesser of two evils situations. I'm a little bit bummed out that the ethical dilemma around which the story is built ends up being sort of swept aside by the introduction of a third party to be our antagonists. I'm not wild about, and this is just probably a skewing of my perspective because that I was introduced to the film adaptation first, which takes the story into different directions than the story was. Like the idea of there being this military coup that depends on this pre-crime failing to go through. It does not exist in the film. And so, to me, having there be a sort of an extra route away from deciding whether or not pre-crime is right or wrong, or having to act on that decision, because there's another element that is that supersedes it in urgency, right? The military coup. There's a conspiracy against Anderton, right? And the conspiracy is really against pre-crime. They need pre-crime to fail so they can justify a military coup and declaring martial law. But because that is such a dire consequence, it means that we're going to not make a decision about whether or not pre-crime deserves to survive. I don't mind that it's not like a happy, super moralizing ending. I'm just frustrated that it gets it's like it gets tabled in favor of something cleaner but less interesting to me.
I feel like this is a story that could benefit from some extra breathing room, like a little bit more time. Because I think, like I was saying, the first time I read it, initially, like, it feels like a very lib ending. It feels like the very, like, we could do something, but if we did, it could, things could get worse, or like the bad guys could like do something worse. So we should probably not do anything. But I don't know that that's actually what it's saying now that we've talked about it more, and that it could have this. But I think, to Dylan's point, we don't really get the time to explore much of the intersection between the military, the policing system, and the innocent.
Yeah.
And how these things are all in sort of a rock, paper, scissors with each other, kind of.
I agree with you both that it is kind of a cop-out ending, but I also think it's a very realistic ending.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that in real life we would ever have a situation where there's just sort of a cut and dry, well, there's not this other threat that could come in, because like there is always another threat, right? And that is why nothing ever changes, right?
Yeah, we've definitely been living it for quite a while.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we always have to vote blue no matter who, because what is the alternative? Something way worse. So I think I agree that, like, probably if I was going to write the story, and now I'm interested to see the movie because I actually haven't seen the movie.
Neither have I.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The movie is very good, but it becomes about very different things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Only the initial conflict.
Yeah.
Like, if the first 10 pages or so of the short story are what the story jumps off for, and it's very much focused on the idea of are you predestined to perform a certain action. And something that we're taking as a given in the short story is that it's much more concerned with the personhood of the precogs, which we're told is a non-factor in the story, and we take that as rote.
That's interesting. Yeah. I think, like, sci-fi is a place where you can create a perfect sort of, you can create a situation where it's like, okay, we're actually going to weigh this philosophical question in terms
a trolley problem
of right or wrong. But I would argue, like, obviously it's not, like, I feel like without the extenuating circumstances of something forcing us to make this easier decision of the lesser of two evils, I feel like that gives it, because without it, it feels like, well, obviously you should get rid of pre-crime, right? Like, I mean, like, in a perfect world, obviously get rid of this unjust system that they now have proved to be unjust. But, like, having, I think, to me, it felt like it had more moral weight because it was up against the sort of thing that we're always up against, which is that, like, it's safest just not to change anything because who knows what bad thing might happen, because that's the kind of world we live in.
Well, and in particular, right, that it's, part of the reason that the story concludes where it does, I think, is because of the perspective it's from, right? It's somebody who's built this, somebody who's invested in maintaining this paradigm, and somebody who whose priors are structured around maintaining and improving the thing that he has created, right? He's not, if he's going to make a grand sacrifice, it's not going to be in the service of something fundamentally different, A. And B, of course, it also explains why the personhood of our precogs is not is not a factor, you know, because it wouldn't be to somebody who's structuring this. There's a certain honesty in the prose rendering them as maldeveloped people saying they don't have any spiritual needs, like their bodily needs are taken care of automatically. Like it's the sort of thing that comes out and tells you what an Anderton would not tell the public. You know, our carceral state now does not speak in terms of human caging, even though that's what it is, because they have to sell it, you know, elsewise.
I will say as well, what I think is going on here is I think Philip K. Dick is fundamentally more interested in being like, ooh, and there's a third thing. I think he's actually interested in the mechanics of the way this shit is working more than he is. I don't think he's disinterested in the politics. Obviously, he's interested in the politics. Of course, he's interested in the moral question. I do think he was excited to be like, there can actually be 3 conflicting reports and 2 of them can agree with each other that a guy's going to die and they're going to look like the same report. Like, I think that if you read his other work too, he loves introducing like a situation.
He loves to have a secret third thing.
He loves that shit. So I think that is also a thing that, like, you know, and obviously, you know, I get it, but like, I think that is part of what he's enjoys doing here is like, he does love introducing that shit.
He's having fun with like the sort of narrative loops he can tie and stuff. But I think, you know, to that earlier point, like, I mean, also considering when this was written, right? This is in the 50s. This is post World War II. It's almost like we're talking about like this sort of military aspect, you know, kind of making this change impossible. Reminds me of a little bit of like a Thomas Pynchon and Gravity's Rainbow kind of thing, where it's like, oh, well, no matter what you try to do to change things or sort of find the good, there are these vast systems above you that cannot be touched, you know, like that everything is built at a level that you can't reach. And we are a little powerless to even understand the machinations of them, which I think is, you know, post 2 world wars and rapidly expanding globalism and industrialization is a feeling that people are having more and more, right? That that there is so much out of their understanding that is happening. And again, like I just wish there was more time to engage with that more, but it's also a pulp magazine story. And so like it's not always gonna be there.
One of my biggest frustrations with this story is that the conspiracy that ends up being more important than the ethics of pre-crime is explained to us in about a paragraph as something like, and then we learned that such and such happened, and really what was happening was this. Like, well, we spent a lot of more time thinking about things that ended up not being material to the story. And I'm not saying that ride wasn't fun. It's just you've just changed what the story is about. You've just set a different set of stakes, but you set those stakes very quickly and with what feels like very little narrative gravity proportionally. And so now that's what the story's about, and the conclusion hinges on that shift. And it's just too much of a hairpin turn for me.
My man had 3 other stories to write that week so he could pay rent.
Well, I have a question for everyone, actually, because at the end here, you know, I think one of the things that at least Dylan and I maybe have been floating around of why the ending can feel a little frustrating is that, you know, essentially we end up maintaining the status quo at the end. And my read of it, I think, was that what Anderton does at the end by killing Kaplan is sort of presented as a heroic thing he's doing by making this choice to be exiled and preserve the status quo. And so I guess my question for everyone is, do you think that we are supposed to understand Anderton's final decision here as heroic or selfless, and does it live up to that?
I kind of disagree. I think the point is that he didn't have a choice. I think the point is that there was that third thing and that he is stuck. Yeah. And I think that's not just a point about like, ooh, time. I think it's also a point about like systems and about like This is the track that you are on based on who you are. The mechanics are here. There's only a few ways you can move.
Yeah.
And this was one of the ways you could go. I do think we were supposed to understand why he made the decision.
Sure.
I mean, I do understand why he made the decision.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that he makes the decision and then he gets out of fucking Dodge.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. So I don't entirely disagree with you, but I do think that if I'm trying to divine the amphetamine fueled mind of Philip K. Dick here, he is partially just being like, yeah, well, we only have so many tracks that we can take. And the machine said you were going to do this thing. I think there's another version of this story, right? That's about, can you defy the machine? But that's not really what this story is about.
Yeah.
I also like this story. I cut slack in the way that I think so many things are based on this story. Like this story feels like it feels derivative, but that's because everything is derived from it. Like, and that's how
there's a lot of Dick stuff.
That's a challenge that's being a timeless work can be a double-edged sword in that sense. And that's, again, like I'm comparing it again to somebody he wrote this in a hurry, and then somebody had like 2 years to rewrite it as a screenplay that got produced and directed by one of the greatest filmmakers ever to ever live, right? So, like, even just if he'd had another fucking week, I bet you a lot of my complaints would have been addressed.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of his, and this isn't even really one of his better stories. Like, this is not one of his trippier stories. There are, like, he has stories where, like, people live on Mars and live under the ground and they go into, like, the bodies of dolls, and there's somebody who's the god of the dolls. Like, he just loves to do shit like that. Like,
a doll man.
He's a guy who's like, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if this shit happened? That's his main driving force, I think.
Lenore, what would a doll man that live on Mars? What would that sound like?
Did you know that there are actually every majority implies a corresponding minority? You have to look at the minority reports in order to get the full scope of the pre-crime.
If you haven't played Death Stranding 2, then this will be completely incomprehensible to you.
We're talking about my favorite Philip K. Dick story, Dolls versus Martian Cigarette Race. Is that?
So to broaden it slightly here, we've talked already about science fiction, what it makes the human brain go burr, all of that. I would ask, first of all, is sci-fi inherently political, and what makes the sort of politics around sci-fi, whether or not it's trying to be political, effective or ineffective? And I would even add, what makes it potentially suck politically, or versus be good? I don't know. Any thoughts on that? I think would be interesting as we sort of come to a close here.
My feeling is always like, if you think about what politics is, other than, like, obviously the dictionary definition of like the management of power or anything like that. But
Webster's dictionary.
Political discussion, political agendas are all about what kind of future do you want. And science fiction is frequently about envisioning a future, whether it's projecting forward a cautionary tale of what we have, or imagining, just a what if we could accomplish this. Right. And so one of them is about what kind of future do you want to build, and the other one is about imagining a future and frequently casting a judgment on that future as you present it. And so I think it's really hard to do a futuristic science fiction story. I know there are other genres we could be talking about, but that doesn't make some kind of judgment on the world in which it's set, which is sort of inherently political. It's like, would you want to build this world, or would you not? Would you want to take action in your life to make this more or less likely to be the world in which you live? But the drawback being that sometimes dark futures or space fascists or super weapons or technology is just so fucking dope on the page or on the screen that people miss the judgment and just think, fuck, the stormtroopers in Star Wars, they have such like a fucking look. Man, I think I want to dress like them when I do my charity work for some fucking reason.
The Imperial March is so sick. I really want that to play while I do things.
Yeah.
It's
while
so
I walk
sick.
down the aisle.
The Imperium of Man sucks, but they have the Adeptus Sororitas, so who can say if it's bad or not?
Yeah, I would say that sci-fi sucks sometimes just because of, like, the annoying people who get really into it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's this sort of, like, because sci-fi was so looked down on for so long as like not real literature, there's this like era of defensiveness with sci-fi that people are like, well, I'm a nerd, I'm a minority because I like sci-fi. Why are you putting your politics into my sci-fi? Because sci-fi should be non-political, i.e. about white straight people. Because that's not political.
Yeah, this is an epidemic right now among Star Trek fans. There's a whole generation of Star Trek fans who are completely blind to how political the Star Trek they grew up watching was, and insist that it just got woke yesterday.
Didn't
they
Star
are
Trek
the
have the
fucking
first
worst.
on-screen interracial kiss?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's all right.
Right? No?
Funny thing, actually not true.
Oh.
But it was a very important example. There
Okay.
was a previous one involving William Shatner years earlier, as a matter of fact. But
Wait,
there were a couple others. Star Trek and Paramount are very good about mythologizing Star Trek and mythologizing Gene Roddenberry. It's part of the reason why it has the fan base that it has. Very important moment in television, but incorrectly cited all over history as the first interracial kiss on TV. There were several others. But yes, the point is that it was...
Shout out to William Shatner regardless, I guess.
William Shatner's like, I'm going to kiss every black woman on TV.
Yeah. William Shatner going to every producer he ever works with. You know, I think it would be really politically important.
No, okay. So here's another thing. It was supposed to be Nimoy. It was supposed to be Leonard Nimoy, and Shatner said, not on your life.
Yeah. He should have kissed Spock instead.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And he probably did.
Yeah.
Fan fiction, the genre, the form of fan fiction was born from Star Trek fans in the late 60s saying, I bet Kirk and Spock kiss between scenes, and they spent money printing magazines and mailing them to each other to talk about it, and that, more or less, for better or worse, is why we now live in the world in which we live.
Yeah, that's where the name Slash comes from, Kirk/Spock.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yep.
Well, I guess the last thing I'll ask here is, what do we want to see out of sci-fi going forward? We were talking about how, you know, foundational works like this, like Minority Report, can almost feel derivative, you know, because of course they're so foundational. Going forward, what do we want to see out of the genre? That can be both politically, but it can also be just like what kicks ass.
I want to
thoughts.
More gay
more
stuff.
Babu Frick. Oh yeah, and more gay stuff.
Sorry, go ahead. Please continue.
Sorry, which two things? Because I heard the gay stuff very loudly.
More gay stuff. I was going to say more Babu Frick. I want to see more Babu Frick in my science fiction. I think if we could get like a gay Babu Frick movie, that's what I want to see.
I was going to say how that falls under what I said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Same thing.
That's gay stuff.
You know, Babu Frick is invited to Pride, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you can see him on the float going, hey, hey.
That's the only thing I remember from that movie, fortunately.
It's the only good thing about it.
Lenore?
As well, like I drew a comparison to Tender as the Flesh earlier in the episode, and you know, I feel like there's a finite number of stories that you can write about somebody who had a hand in creating this system, whatever paradigm they find themselves in, realizing that they are doomed to be consumed by it in one way or another, right? Or, you know, greatest horror of horrors, that they can completely get away with it, you know, very, very much like, in many ways, like Tender as the Flesh feels like a Zone of Interest before Zone of Interest, right? What I want to know, if I'm reading certainly that conceit is an important one, but what I want to know is, what about the people who get caught up in pre-crime and sent to these camps, right? What about the people who are going about their day and navigating whatever it is they navigate? What about the actual electricians and not just the fake ones, like the one that Anderton becomes, the fake identity that's, you know, like, what happens when your plumber gets outed as like a serial killer and he's never been a serial killer, right? And how is there a support group for such people, right? That's what I want to know, and I want to know how these people fight back and build something new.
I was thinking about this too, Lenore, because I was watching the new Game of Thrones show that is like about what is it, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is like about it's about like commoners. And I was like, oh, this is so different. I was like, wow, this is like lighter, and people are are nicer. And I was like, oh, it's because it's not about rich people. Not everyone is a psychotic cunt.
Yeah.
I've heard it's pretty good.
It is. It is really good.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it. I'm shocked.
I will also add, just because it's a personal thing, that if we can get some more sci-fi that talks shit about AI, that'd be fun.
Hell yeah, brother.
And I would like to shout out friends of the pod, the Penumbra podcast, making Thirst. Thirst does some great shitting on AI. Some real fun stuff with that. Highly recommend people go and check that stuff out.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you like
somebody should write a short
Danganronpa
story
or
collection.
RoboCop. Imagine those
Well, what'd
combined.
you say?
Jacob, somebody should write a short story collection about this sort of thing.
If that materializes, I do have a short story collection I'm working on called AI or It Makes Me Want to Kill Myself, but if I don't kill myself first.
You can't let
therein
the AI
lies-
win.
I asked the precogs, and that's only one of the futures. There's several more where you don't. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
optimistic
I've got a
here.
2 out of 3 chance. Yeah. Well, some other people that are doing some cool work. They're on the podcast with us right now from the pod universe. Folks, do y'all want to tell folks one more time where they can find you and any other plugs that you may want to drop?
Yeah, you can find us. We are on social media as The Pod Universe, but you can also find our old podcast, Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, on podcatchers everywhere. We are currently in phase 1 of the Pod Universe. Out of, we do the typical Marvel, like 3 or 4 phase saga,
Yeah, and
so
we cap one off. We start the show with something that we write together to set the stage, and then we go off to tell our separate stories, and then we're going to be coming up on the one where we converge the stories we just told together in some kind of crossover. But yeah,
So it's a good time to start listening. In May, I think we're going to have our big first crossover Avengers type film, which of course is called War of the Worlds.
but we'll be mostly unrelated to H.G. Wells'
Mostly
War of the
unrelated to H.G.
Worlds.
Wells.
Good, because I'm going to go back in time and
also-
kill that guy.
Luckily, yeah, not load bearing to our universe. So go ahead.
Yeah, we
go
could-
ahead and do your time crime.
We'll be the first people to do War of the Worlds.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I feel like I should also
suck
actually
it, Ice Cube.
on this particular podcast, I used to write a comic series.
Oh, yeah.
Which is still available online called Monocle. That is spelled like the first half of monoculture.
Oh.
And it was like Tales from the Crypt about tech companies. And it was a bunch of little 8-page horror stories about things like AI and your telephone
Yeah.
and things like that.
They're all about the ways that tech companies are poisoning people's lives, particularly in the workforce. I keep coming back to the one that you wrote about the company where they start, because all of their factory workers keep throwing themselves off the top of the factory, they start reconstructing their bodies and forcing their undead corpses to work.
Yeah.
That's a keeper.
Yeah. So if you like
Pretty haunting.
scary sci-fi short stories, you can find Monocle online and listen to the Pod Universe.
Also, folks, if you're like, I like Workers Lit, but what if it was mostly just Aisha and
What if
it was about Elden Ring? I wish there was a podcast about that, Aisha.
Yeah,
Is there?
in fact, that's such a coincidence that you should mention that, Jacob. Go listen to All My Maidens, which is a podcast about Elden Ring, hosted by me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know, it's
just
crazy
came
that
up with off
exists.
the dome.
Wow.
Well, Lenore, Aisha, anybody? Do any of y'all have a good thought of how we can close this one? Because that is one thing I don't have.
Be gay, do crimes. Future crimes.
Be gay, do crimes in the future. Crimes in the future.
Be
yeah.
gay. Be gay, be bald, be fat,
Be
be
gay,
old,
be gay, be bad.
and do
Be gay,
crimes.
be old. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Bye.
See you, folks.
Take care.